Hello and welcome to our general safeguarding training for David's tent. The aim of this video is to give you a bit of knowledge on what safeguarding is, how we can spot it, the different types of abuse and the reporting procedures that we have within David's tent. At David's tent, the safeguarding team is comprised of 5 people. We have Amma, who is our safeguarding trustee, and she's responsible for the overseeing of safeguarding within David's tent. We have 3 designated safeguarding leads. We've got John Kyle, who's also our managing director for David's tent, and he oversees safeguarding year round. However, at the event, you're more likely to see one of these 2 people. So you've got Kerry and then myself, Jessica, and we are both designated safeguarding leads. Kerry's a social worker and I'm a teacher. We have slightly different responsibilities. So Kerry's brilliant with on decision making on site, making referrals to the local authority. I get to do your training. Safeguarding is a word that we hear quite a lot, and it's sometimes seen as something that can be quite daunting. However, I think for me personally, it fundamentally actually feels like a biblical principle. There are some verses on the slide to hopefully help me explain this a little bit. The Bible talks about there being harmony amongst the members so that all members can care for each other. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. And if one part is honoured, all parts are glad. All of you together, Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. And that's a really key principle as well within safeguarding, is that we all look out for each other, we're wanting the best. And if we're seeing somebody that may be in need of additional support for some different reasons, which we'll go over later, it's our responsibility as the body of Christ to be there and to support them. The other one, be on guard, stand firm in the faith and be courageous and be strong. It's not always easy dealing with safeguarding, so it's important that we're aware of where it might happen, to actually go in armoured with our faith, and to be courageous in calling out things that may not be the right thing, and that's really important. The last one, his angels guard those who honour the Lord and rescues them from danger. All of those are people that we're going to be interacting with over the weekend and working with and watching over. We are sent there as well to help those individuals, and if they are in any danger, to report it, to try and help as well. So I hope that gives a little more context of actually where safeguarding and the Bible come together. To help us understand safeguarding a little more, it's important to understand that it can be split into 2 categories. Generally, when people hear the word safeguarding, they may think about it only linking to children, whereas actually safeguarding covers adults as well. There's a lot of different legislation that covers different safeguarding, such as the Children's Act, the Healthcare Act. What else have we got? The Children and Families Act, Keeping Children Safe in Education, Working Together to Safeguard Children, Human Rights, Data Protection, Sexual Offences Act. It goes on and on and on, and there's a lot of legislation. But the important bits I've hopefully highlighted on the slide for you. So for the sake of safeguarding, someone that we refer to as a child is anybody under the age of 18 years, and that's what's legally defined as a child. Anyone working with children should see and speak to the child, listen to what they say, take their views seriously, and work with them and the families to collaboratively decide how their support needs are moving forward. That's a conversation that us as designated safeguarding leads might have, but we're not going to know to have those conversations if the reporting procedure hasn't been followed. So it's really important to be aware of those children that you might come across on site, or actually if something's happened to somebody historically when they were a child. Our under 18s ministry have a different safeguarding training which goes into this in a lot more detail. For adults, we still have a safeguarding policy that applies to adults which we say are in need of protection, and this might be due to a number of different reasons. It could be because they have a need for care and support. It might be that this is done through private care or the local authority. It might also be that they're experiencing or at risk of abuse or neglect, and because of those care and support needs, they may be a little more vulnerable to it. The element other element might be that they're unable to protect themselves from either the risk of or the experience of abuse or neglect, and that could be for a number of different factors, which we'll explore a little bit later. I think the really important thing with safeguarding, no matter the age of the individual that we're trying to support, is to know that all of us who are coming into contact with such individuals need to work together, and it's really around partnership working and being part of that bigger body and that bigger family that works together to keep these individuals safe, and to support them the best way that we can. So fundamentally, safeguarding is everybody's responsibility because it's about preventing harm and sharing information. So if you can take those two little bits and just remember that safeguarding is about preventing harm and sharing information, that's really important. With adults, it's also around supporting them to make their own choices and decisions, and managing the risks that might be associated with that, trying to help them to take responsibility for their own safety and well-being as well. That may be something that Kerry and I do a little more, but that might be something that comes up in your conversations as well, potentially with your team builds that you are working with. It's important to realise that any concerns we have around safeguarding can actually arise at any time. So that could be within the event. And it's not to say that it's only going to happen in the children's tent or the youth tent or the toddler's tent. There are so many different areas where we could see potential safeguarding concerns. That might even be on campsite where you're around families quite a lot. It might be on car park where you're welcoming them in. At any given point, it could be within the prayer ministry, and somebody shares something with you. There's no set formula to when safeguarding comes up, so it's actually about being aware that it could happen at any time. It's important to remember as well that individuals who are at risk from others, or others who might be at risk due to the individual's actions, would come under safeguarding as well. So that's another key piece of information to remember. If somebody does choose to share something with you, if children are involved at all, it must always be reported to Kerry or I, even if it is maybe some historical abuse that's happened to them as a child. Please still report it to us. It is our legal obligation. As well, if an adult is in need of protection, then any historical abuse as well needs to be reported to Kerry or myself. So I mentioned earlier that there might be some factors that contribute to a person being in need of protection. So that's those adults that may need our safeguarding support. Those two factors that might be at play come under the two different categories of either individual or environmental. So if somebody's sharing something about the environment that they're in outside of David's tent, and you think this might not be the best environment for a person to be in, it might not necessarily be safe, or it might be contributing to their life being more challenging, that could be putting them in that category of a person in need of protection. It can also be down to individual factors, so that can include as well things like additional needs, health or disabilities, mental health, all of those other factors that can be at play within a person's life. It's about looking at those and seeing it in the situation and having that information to share if you think it is important to share under that safeguarding umbrella. So when we talk about safeguarding, we're also talking about abuse, and knowing the different types of abuse is important. The way that they look within children and within adults is different, so we need to have an awareness of both. There's physical abuse, which is any unwanted contact leading to injuries or pain. With children, we know that they are active things, some of them, and injury can be likely to occur. But it's actually not our responsibility to decide if that injury is accidental or not, but to share the concerns if we have them. It's quite easy to accept an explanation that appears quite plausible at face value, but when there's further thought or questioning, it's a bit unrealistic. So we need to have a degree of respectful uncertainty and curiosity so that we can follow through, even if there are any blocks from anyone else, until we're satisfied with the welfare of the child and that it's being protected. With adults as well, physical abuse can happen. It may be quite hidden, so we might not directly see it, but somebody may make passing comment on it or disclose a history of it as well, which is important to listen to and to understand. There's sexual abuse, which is any unwanted sexual contact and involvement in sexual activities and relationships, which again can happen with children or with adults. It may be that children aren't actually aware of what's happening to them, and that it would fall under this category. With teenagers, it may be ensuring that they're fully understanding about consent. And with adults, it's about helping them to understand that their own personal boundaries can be respected even if they're in a relationship. It doesn't have to just be around assault. There's also psychological or emotional abuse, which are any actions that make an individual feel worthless or humiliated. With children, this can be belittling them, or bullying actually comes under this category as well, which impacts on their self-worth and their self-concept. With adults as well, it's going to be impacting their well-being and their emotional well-being, and may link as well to those feelings of worthlessness or humiliation, and can also go into fear if it's within specific settings, that can then increase mental health difficulties. We also have discrimination, which is the unequal treatment of an individual based on age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage, civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sexual orientation, which are all protected characteristics under the Human Rights Act. This can again happen with both children and adults, so it's really important to listen to what they say, and if they are facing any specific discrimination, know that it actually comes under as a type of abuse. We can also have organisational or institutional abuse, and that is around maybe service users. So the focus of a service needs to be of the organisation, its staff, rather on the needs of the individual who are accessing the service. So it's about trying to support those individuals where, if they are in a setting that's not supporting their needs, that we're just aware of those factors and if they might need some further support. There's domestic violence as well. So this is threatening behaviour, violence or abuse between individuals who are related either biologically or through marriage. The reason this one comes under children and adults is because if children are witnessing domestic violence, it can have a really significant impact on their development as well as their emotional well-being, and it would be enough for us to make a referral, just alone from them witnessing domestic violence. And then within adults, we need to remember that it can happen to any person in that relationship, regardless of age or gender. There's modern slavery, which is when an individual is being exploited by others for personal or commercial gains. Again, can be seen in both adults and children in this country as well. There have been some quite extreme cases where some children have been brought in from abroad to work for a family, and that comes under the modern day slavery as well. So it's just about being aware of those factors that may be impacting on an individual. We also have financial and marital abuse. So this is the unauthorised use of a person's property, money or possessions. This one is more specifically for adults rather than children, but it's just being aware that if you have an individual share this kind of thing or this kind of worry, then please bring it to us as well. There's neglect, which is failure of others to meet an individual's needs, and this again can be children and adults. Children rely on adults to support their basic needs like clothing, getting washed, being fed, and if those things aren't being met, then that may fall under the neglect umbrella. With adults who are in need of protection, it may be that those others who are not supporting them are not meeting those individual needs as well. Alternatively, if they're not having care from certain people, certain people, it can come under acts of omission or self-neglect. So the failure to meet one's own needs more as an adult, and that may be because of things like mental health really impacting on an individual, or health needs or environmental needs as well. The other one that's important to mention is spiritual abuse. And this is any attempt to exert power and control over somebody using religion, faith, or beliefs. We are a Christian festival, so I think it's really important to be aware of this one. And if anyone brings anything like this up, please again bring it to us. There's a couple of extras that aren't in the boxes, but I'd just like to give you some information on. Especially because it can affect teenagers and some adults as well, and some children. There's this thing called county lines, which is all about the movement of drugs between counties, and then within the county itself, and to do with the phones that are used to distribute their product, shall we say. It's actually quite a big thing in the southwest, which is where we are for David's tent this year. So I think it's just to be aware of how individuals may be involved in this kind of gang culture and the distribution of drugs. It can happen through something called grooming, which is where certain favors, gifts, exchanges of money, like if you do this for me, I'll give you that, and through that grooming process they then end up being in more compromising and dangerous situations. The other thing to mention is something called upskirting, which is taking photographs of specifically women, but I'm sure if you're wearing a kilt it would count as well, taking photographs up skirts. So that's something as well that comes under that sexual abuse category. Obviously, none of these things are nice to encounter or to hear about, but it is really important that we are there to support those individuals and the right recording and referral takes place. So now you've identified where there may be potential abuse, or you have a safeguarding concern around somebody's well-being, what we then need to know is how to deal with that concern or how to report it. David's tent safeguarding policy clearly states what we need to do, but I've also put it on the slide so that hopefully it makes things a little clearer. If somebody makes a direct disclosure to you, i.e. they've literally said to you, this is happening in my life, and that could be a child or an adult making that, you need to make notes within an hour of hearing it, because the fresher it is in your mind, the more accurate it would be. If you're then to go and do a shift or get caught up doing something else, the accuracy of how you remember it isn't going to be as good. What you need to do is find a piece of paper, make sure there are no gaps on the page, and write down exactly what happened. If they said things specifically, literally write down what they said. Don't include any of your feelings or how it could be interpreted, just stick to the facts, basically. Make sure you include the individual's name, when it happened, and where. From that, please make sure that you don't ask any leading questions or investigate. Also, don't promise to keep it a secret of what you've been told. Some individuals may ask that, and they may say it at the beginning of the conversation, but it's really important that we don't promise to do that and break trust. Instead, we need to be transparent with our communication. For working with children, I tend to say to them, thank you so much for sharing, that was really brave. Thank you. Sometimes we need other grown-ups to help us to manage these things. So what might happen is I might talk to another grown-up about it, which is nice and simple in child speak. With adults, it's just making it really clear that actually from what they've said, you have got some worries or concerns, and that you're going to pass it on to the safeguarding team, who may have a conversation around it and look into it. That open, clear communication is really important. If you are a team lead, you should have a radio, or a department head, which is excellent. Please just radio the incident response channel, which is what Kerry and I will be on, and then we will come to you, you can come to us, we can arrange a time and we'll go through that concern with you and that kind of thing. The other thing that's really important is that any suspicions you may have should not be discussed with anybody else apart from the designated safeguarding lead, unless we are directly telling you to do otherwise. That's because we really want to respect that person's confidentiality, also comes under general data protection side of things. Because this is of a really sensitive and confidential nature, we don't want to be sharing that with other people. If you do need pastoral support, because these things are not easy to hear or to manage with, and it's really important that you have the opportunity to talk it through. If you feel like you need some pastoral support prayer afterwards, Kerry and I can do that with you, or we can link you to somebody that you may be a bit more comfortable with. We're not going to share with them the entire situation, but we'll just say that you may need some support because you've had to be working with us. So I hope that helps, but the important bit, write it down, talk to us. So just some top tips to try and help you as you're going about and keeping yourself safe and others safe. Number one, avoid being alone with a child or person in need of protection behind a closed door, which is quite difficult seeing as we're camping, but don't go into a tent with them on their own or anywhere that's kind of out of sight. Just be visible and be open. Try to always be in pairs, maybe when dealing with a sensitive situation, just so then you're protected and there's somebody else with you as well. This also includes prayer. I think most of the ministry team work in pairs, which is really important, again, just because of the sensitive nature of things. Ensure that your behaviour is open and transparent. Our team builds have the honour code, which I know that we're all aware of as well. So it's just about kind of complying with that, being open and transparent with how we are, which kind of goes along with the adopting high standards of personal conduct. Within safeguarding, we do actually say that behaviour in or out of the setting must not compromise your position as a volunteer. So there may be things that are happening outside of David's tent that we may be told about, and that can sometimes impact on that, which doesn't mean to make it sound scary, but it's about making sure we've got the best practice and the most safe environment that we can have. Ensure that you understand our expected standards of behaviour, again in the honour code, event management plan, the safeguarding policy. Physical touch, try to avoid it where appropriate. Any physical touch should always be about the individual's needs, not your own. So be appropriate, be in the sight of others. I'm not saying you can't give somebody a little side hug if they're upset, but it is around their needs as well. And just in terms of social media, because it is a big part of people's lives now, if somebody who is under 18 or a person in need of protection requests to follow you, connect with you, direct message you on any of the social media platforms, please don't. It's just about trying to keep you safe. If it's somebody that you have regular contact with in your church, that's okay, but from a one-off connection at David's tent, it's best practice to not accept that friendship request, especially if you've come across them due to a situation where you may be communicating with us. Is a beautiful part of the David's Tent culture, and we love all those moments that arise through prayer and through worship. However, we have got a few notes on prayer. Prayer should always be safe, respectful, appropriate and accountable. Within that, we ask that if a delegate does approach you for prayer, please can you signpost them to the approved prayer ministry team or SOZO rather than offering prayer yourself. It's a way that we can make sure that we are keeping those delegates safe with prayer as well, and that the right people with the right training are there. Within your own teams, obviously as team leaders or team builders, please do feel free to pray for each other and still follow those prayer ministry guidelines. For under 18s, we're saying that prayer must only take place within their programme and through the approved children or youth team, just because that is a way that we can ensure that people with DBS checks and the appropriate clearance are with the children when they're being prayed for. When you are
praying, again, those personal safety matters or professional guidelines are still in place. So please pray in pairs. If there are children, maybe if you've been part of the art team and have gone into the youth, make sure it's with one of the team builds for that area. Make sure that prayer is done in an open and a visible space as well. In terms of physical contact, please always ask permission. Some people just don't want to be touched, and that's okay. If you are, then please can you just place a hand on the shoulder and keep it still. No rubbing or anything like that. We're going to respect boundaries as well. So we can listen compassionately, but if trauma comes up or abuse or any personal circumstances, we aren't going to go into those in depth. Prayer ministry is not counselling, and there are professionals who can do that. If something like that does come up, again, please feel free to signpost them to safeguarding and welfare, and we may be able to signpost them to people that are able to help and know who are more suitable. When you're praying, please be careful with your words. You can share any words of knowledge or pictures or impressions, but please do so humbly and with no pressure towards the person that you're giving them to. Don't make those promises or predictions or authoritative claims. Also, don't advise. We can pray for healing and we love it when God heals people, but we're not going to say to somebody, oh, well, why don't you stop taking your medication just to test it? That's a decision for that individual and medical professionals to go through. And there are some other areas that, again, we're not going to make those big claims about in terms of the situation that they might be in could have arisen from something that they've done. Within that, confidentiality also has limits, so we're not going to promise secrecy. Our safeguarding concerns need to be reported to the safeguarding team. So again, make those notes and then please pass them on to us, or you can call us over. The prayer ministry team in previous years have been really good at calling us over when something happens, that we can then be there to advise that individual and help them through that circumstance. Also, maintain those boundaries. Don't arrange to meet people outside of David's tent or exchange contact details when you've prayed for them. It might be really lovely to hear what's happened, but again, it's about keeping ourselves safe and keeping those appropriate relationships. You could signpost to other areas of support kind of while you're there. Again, if you're unsure with anything, either speak to the prayer ministry team leader or safeguarding if you're unsure. But please make sure that within prayer, if there is anything going on, if a situation becomes prolonged or quite complex, that you seek the support of those from those two teams so that we can keep everybody safe.
So just a final summary to go through things. Number one, believe that it can happen here. Just because we are a Christian festival does not mean that this kind of thing isn't going to come up. So it's about believing that it can happen where we are. Pay attention, express curiosity whilst you're about on site. You never know, you might be witnessing something that's another piece of the puzzle that really helps Kerry and I to put a bigger picture together. Look at the way that maybe people are behaving, and that could be the children or the person in need of protection, and just have a look at how they're behaving and what you see. It might again give us another piece of that puzzle to the bigger picture. Listen, people and children talk to people that they trust. If somebody's sharing something with you, you're in a really privileged position. So listen up, and then if something has come up, record it, write it down, any concerns or disclosures as soon as possible, and put down the time and the date. And then have conversations or pass your concerns on to us as designated safeguarding leads and keep them to yourself, and we'll be there to support you through it. I hope that that's given you a bit more context around safeguarding at David's Tent and how we're doing it on site this year. If you have any questions, please do email the safeguarding email, which is safeguarding@davidstent.net, and we'll be able to answer your questions. Otherwise, we'll see you on site and looking forward to it.